Avengers, assemble! That's what Captain America stated in Avengers Endgame as huge numbers of allies aligned with him to defeat the biggest tragedy they had ever seen. We may not have a foe from outer space to unite against, but during the last year, we have seen humanity join forces to stop the spread of COVID-19. Greetings and welcome to my archive of stories. My name is Win Bunbaum. Recently, I have been thinking about a phenomenon that occurs during tragic events. Tragedy unites humanity, or at least that's how the saying goes. What I'm interested in finding out is how this phenomenon occurs in the moment, instead of looking back at it retrospectively. How do community members feel about the massive aligning of people? Do they think the present sense of unity will have short-term or long-term effects? How do community members see unity accelerate advancements of society? This story is produced by Rat Things Productions. If you have a voice that needs to be heard, we've got your back. This is a student project and not a real podcast or business. COVID-19 reached the United States in January of 2020. Since then, over 30 million cases have been reported and over 500,000 individuals have died from COVID-19. During the height of the cases, communities joined together to fight the pandemic. On March 28, 2020, ABC 27 News showed a video showcasing New York residents in their apartments cheering for frontline workers. The video circulated nationally and spurred more celebrations. I sat down with 3 medical professionals to hash out what they think about the unified forces against COVID-19. Amber Krause, an RN who works at a cardiac intensive care and step-down unit, reminisces.
That was pretty cool. We actually were lucky to have some celebrations like that here as well.
Carolyn Ordway, a director of a cardiac intensive care unit and an interventional progressive coronary unit, adds,
We had fire trucks from all different fire companies circling the institution and had their sirens going. Police were involved in it. It was quite a feeling. We also had a Jeep club, and we saw all different kinds of Jeeps and people out the window waving to us, all excited about how we were caring for patients.
Ms. Krause provides another example of community support.
We also had some children who gave cards that we were able to give out to the families to give to the patients as well as to us. Like some local schools donated, sent us packets of get well cards and stuff like that. And some to us, but some that we could hand out to the patients because they weren't allowed to have any visitors. It was rough on this side. And having that support was really meant a lot to not just us as managers, but to our staff.
Ms. Ordway agrees.
It was wonderful when we would get called at 11:30 in the morning saying your entire staff is getting lunch donated by such and such a restaurant. I mean, it was a highlight in our day because we were working so hard and didn't have a lot of time to heat up lunch, etc. So it was coming already prepared and individually packaged.
I asked about the amount of support they have now compared to the amount during the height of the pandemic. Katie Logan, an RN who works at a low-level cardiac step-down unit, answers.
I think it was an initial increase, but now it's kind of going downhill as everything sort of fizzles out.
Ms. Ordway elaborates on Katie Logan's statement.
I think the support was there when we really needed it, and now we're not completely past the whole pandemic. However, it has definitely slowed up, and so things are getting back into more normal life again. So we have seen a decrease, but I don't believe it's a bad thing. I think we're all hopeful that we can move forward in our normal life.
Ms. Krause emphasizes that
It was such extreme time during the pandemic that support was needed. I think on a regular basis as nurses, this is kind of what we do. They tend to be a modest group of people that even though this was bad, this is what we signed up for, right? We're nurses, we're here to take care of their patients no matter what. So I think going back to normal is okay because people think nursing, this is kind of what nurses do, right? We want to do this every day. We don't necessarily need that. We don't need the fanfare every day.
I was curious to find out if they felt that the pandemic strengthened their relationships with their fellow medical professionals or not. Ms. Ordway believes that her relationships with fellow colleagues did get stronger.
I think we've really had to work together, a main unit, and then you have all the ancillary departments, and I think we've really had to work together in order to adequately care for the patients. And I think the physicians even with visitation, the physicians, for instance, called me to ask if the patient in 320 could have a visitor because it was end of life. So I think we've become even more closer.
All three of them go farther and state that the pandemic has strengthened relationships outside of the medical field.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody came together to help each other.
Yeah. I'm sure there were people who thought that it wasn't real and they tried to buck the process. But for the most part, I think everybody's really bonded together in order to make it work.
More appreciative of each other, too.
The hospital has set up kind of a area where we can reach out to the community. Some of the people come through and have given Starbucks to them and kind of helped each other out, knowing that it was appreciative of what they were doing. And the community is very happy that the hospital is here and is supporting them and, taking care of them.
However, Ms. Logan feels like the transition to electronic procedures forced by COVID-19 may have hampered the patient-to-doctor relationship.
I kind of think it got worse. I think it's a good and bad thing. So we've had doctors who choose not to come to the patient bedside when they have COVID, so they'll do a virtual visit with them. And I think that's hard because a lot of the patients are older and they don't like that. And they like to see and talk to the doctor. But then in other cases, when you're going to your primary doctor, I think that might be a better thing. A lot of people don't want to just go to the doctor. The hardest part is getting there. So
Ms. Ordway argues that virtual visits may be beneficial to elderly patients.
If they're able to do a virtual visit, because sometimes elderly patients have a very difficult time getting to a physician's office.
You transport or...
Yeah, and so it might have helped in that sense.
Ms. Ordway does strongly believe that virtual visits are a great way to stay safe for the patient and for the medical professional.
I actually think it's been a huge plus. You feel safe from a standpoint of a medical professional that you don't have possibly sick patients coming to see you. If you're on the flip side of it, you feel safe as a patient because you're not following another patient who might have been sick when you were there.
Ms. Ordway also adds that she thinks that these new methods will continue on after the pandemic ends.
I think they will.
Yeah.
I even, in addition to what you mentioned about patients and appointments, our meetings that we've had to attend are no longer in person, and they've developed web access for everything. And that's kind of a good thing because you are still attending meetings, but you're not spending the time walking there, walking back from the meeting. I like the web access, actually.
Ms. Krause stresses how the pandemic pushed technology into more of our lives to streamline procedures.
And technology has really kind of come to the forefront of a lot of what we're doing with the way of meetings and Zoom and internet and teaching. I think there's a little bit of barrier for some of the population because they're not necessarily very tech savvy. So that part kind of gets a little bit of a challenge. But I think that in general, I think technology has been a huge change and an advantage to this process.
Ms. Ordway adds that this technology push may be affecting society more than we think.
I think it has actually assisted the community, people who maybe just had flip phones. It encouraged them to go out and purchase iPhones or Androids so they could FaceTime their loved one in the hospital. And although we think, well, maybe we'll just package up this pandemic and it will go away, we never know when another one's coming or what's behind it. So I think it has probably broadened some of the population to consider going a little bit more tech savvy.
I asked them to give some advice on how the community can continue to be a united front against the COVID-19 pandemic. Ms. Logan provides some insight.
I think people should really use their best judgment. If you're going to go to a party where there's 20 people and you're all inside, I don't think that's a good idea. But if you're outside for 4th of July and there's 10 people and you're all out, that's something different. Right. Obviously, social distance, take your vitamin C, wear a mask, wash your hands.
Ms. Krause also strongly advises getting the vaccine.
I think also people getting vaccinated is important. I think the more that people are vaccinated, the more we're going to be able to move forward. I think the disease isn't going to go away, but it may not be as deadly and cost as many lives as it has. I think, like I said, I don't think COVID's going to disappear, but be more manageable, kind of like the flu. But it's something that we just have to kind of keep working for.
The saying tragedy unites humanity seems to be true according to Amber Krause, Katie Logan, and Carolyn Ordway's testimony. Unity seems to be correlated with tragedy and only lasts until the immediacy of the event dies down. This was one story from my archive of adventures. I am Wynn Budenbaum. Thank you for listening.